Hello, everyone. We're here with Eric Zaunscherb, CEO of GR Silver. Eric, please tell us a little bit about GR Silver. I know that you have a complex of projects called Plomosas, and we'd like to certainly know a lot more about it. Maybe we can start a little bit with focusing on the expanding high-grade silver at San Marcial. There's some interesting developments there, and maybe you can fill us in.
Absolutely. Well, I just joined the company as CEO, joined the management group literally last week. And so I have to praise the great job that Marcio Fonseca has done in founding this company and building the land package that you referred to. So we've got well over 700 square kilometers in Sinaloa State in Mexico. It's a former producing area, so Spanish production right on through to the modern era. And you mentioned a complex. I mean, that was a group of properties that were put together by Marcio over 3 different transactions. And so the result is a district scale project. The core is well over 400 square kilometers, and it encompasses several structural corridors. So there's a combination of at least 45 kilometers of structural corridors, and those structural corridors importantly act as the fluid conduits that then become those deposits. And so we now have 79 million ounces on a silver equivalent basis, and we believe that with those conduits and with the geological model that we now have targeting high-grade mineralization, that we're going to demonstrate that several styles of mineralization are operating on those structural corridors to give us multiple epithermal vein systems. So that's where we're at right now, that beautiful transition point from quiet land acquisition and data compilation, then applying that exploration model, actively drilling, resulting in what we think are some important new discoveries. And that's what you asked about.
Right.
Is that for a long answer? San Marcial, that depth extent, is the new discovery where we've now gotten several holes where we're seeing higher mineralization grades than we've seen in the past. And now we're seeing higher silver components as well. So one hole delivered 799 grams of silver, not equivalent, silver, over 18.5 meters. And also the other hole, 38 meters at 299 grams per ton. So very, very solid results that we now are going to follow up on.
Excellent. There's the relatively adjacent to Plomosas project that has a resource. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that specific area, I guess, is progressing and how you're going to advance it.
Right. So Plomosas is a former mine, a former lead zinc mine operated by Grupo Mexico. And that mine resulted in the extraction of 2.5 million tons at an average grade of 190 grams per ton silver. So in August of last year, we put out the first resource estimate that's been done. And that resource estimate resulted in a 45 gram per ton average silver grade. So why the discrepancy? That's a large gap. Well, we think that with detailed, cost-effective infill drilling targeted at the mineralization, the higher grade silver mineralization, that we can move that needle from 45 grams per ton silver towards 190 grams per ton silver. And I'll give you 3 quick reasons why we believe that. One is that we only had 80% of the historical drill holes that became validated. And so those are holes that were for which we had core and we had documentation. The other 18% were not validated and therefore went into the resource model at 0 grade. Number 2 is that was a base metal mine that Grupo Mexico was operating. And so there was a lot of selective sampling of core that was focused on the base metals. And so they sampled where they saw sulfides, right, for the lead and the zinc, for galena and sphalerite, respectively. And where they didn't see sulfides, they left unsampled. Well, we know from over 5,000 channel samples underground that those areas, those unsampled areas, in large part of the story, carries precious metals mineralization. But they went into the model at 0. right? So with that detailed infill drilling program, we think that we can negate some of those zero grades in the resource model and move the needle, as I said, from 45 grams per ton in the resource towards 190 grams per ton in historical mining.
So you mentioned underground and that there's a lot of infrastructure there.
Yes.
Maybe you can speak to that a little bit in terms of the leg up that it gives you
Right.
on that project.
Well, exactly. We have a few things that we think de-risk the story and reduce the timeline. And those include 8 kilometers of development underground as a historical mine. I was down underground before Christmas and the ground stands up beautifully well. And then secondly, timeline is impacted by your ability to permit and make arrangements in Mexico with the ejidos. So on the permitting side, the property is already permitted for a limited production rate that we can address in the future when we deliver technical studies. And then in terms of arrangements with the ejidos, and for those that don't know, ejido is the agricultural cooperative. It's like the community in the area. Over the entire Plomosas project, we have 3 ejidos that are impacted. We have arrangements with 2 of them with regard to production and with 1 of them with regard to exploration. Having those arrangements, having permitting, having underground development gives us a nice leg up that allows us to get towards production sooner than later.
Excellent. You did mention the original resource was at a lower grade. That's certainly something that's going to be addressed and likely, hopefully, but likely improved on. You're looking, from what I remember, on this particular project, an updated resource probably within a year. What kinds of things do you need to work through to get to that? How likely do you feel you can meet that kind of timeline and the improvements that will bring?
Well, I think as observers of the market, one of the key things for us is to manage expectations. And so from my perspective, I'd like to see us deliver resource updates at San Marcial by expanding volume at a higher grade, and at Plomosas by addressing that grade. So 2 resource updates that would then come out as an integrated resource for the Plomosas project entirely. Then after that, we can start contemplating, if justified, going on to a PEA, an integrated operation that would look at both projects. They're only 5 kilometers apart.
You mentioned, you spoke a little earlier about Marcio and the work that he's done, and one of the things that certainly sticks with me is how he already a couple of years back would talk about how this has the potential to be developed as an open pit, something that is maybe not necessarily all that common, especially when you're talking about silver. Maybe you can talk to that a little bit and give us some perspective of what that could mean in terms of advantages for you as a silver miner.
Absolutely. Well, starting with Plomosas, that's already developed as an underground mine. There could be some opportunity for a small open pit at the top of that. We'll see. San Marcial, however, right now is conceived of as if you look at the pit constrained resource, as an open pit down to about 250 meters. Obviously, a PEA is required in order to firm this up. But conceptually, if you're looking at higher grades at depth, that will pull the pit down to some extent before you then go towards underground mining. And the widths are very nice, so you're looking at cost-effective underground mining. Coming back to the open pit, San Marcial is on the edge of a slope. And so you're really looking at a half pit rather than a full open pit. So a lower strip ratio, very attractive grades in an open pit situation. We'll see what the PEAs give us, but we're excited about the opportunity.
Excellent. So maybe to kind of give a final overview, you can tell us about what some of the catalysts might be over the next, say, 12 months or so, and what investors can look forward to.
Well, very near term, we have 4 holes that have been assayed and delivered in terms of being released. There are another 4 holes underground at San Marcial. We'll have to see what those deliver, but towards the end of the month, beginning of April, like all companies, we've seen delays in getting assays, 7-8 weeks waiting because of COVID. But we hope that as COVID fades, that we'll see a shorter turnaround with the labs. That all being said, you're looking at San Marcial drill results. We are in the middle of a program at Plomosas that's exploring those grades and those nil grades that are in the resource block. There we have 2 underground portable rigs that are operating and a surface rig that are generating samples that are in the lab. And so again, April, May, we'll see results from the Plomosas infill drill program, comparing them to the resource block model. And then thirdly, we have a lot of smoke to the north of Plomosas, to the north of San Marcial, where we have this structural corridor that has multiple vein systems within them, and we're getting some really nice surface results, things like north of the La Colorada mine area, where we're seeing things like we released this a few weeks ago, 2.3 meters of 16.5 grams gold and 244 grams of silver. Really nice results. We've put some drill holes underneath that, and again, April, May, when we see the results of that drill program, we'll get some sense of what's happening further to the north.
Well, thanks very much for that overview. It was short but sweet, and I think that investors have a lot to look forward to over the next little while, certainly the rest of this year.